All right, everybody, we are back here and we are going to be talking about the Reformation a little bit in Spain, which we'll pull in the Netherlands, and then we'll get into France. And guess what? People are going to fight, fight, and fight some more. And then the next one's going to be another war after this, guys. We're going to get there, though. It will eventually calm down. But here we go. So Spain, we've talked about them over and over again. They are ultra-Catholic. They are going to do anything and everything they can to hold up the goals of Catholicism. I will say, and we're going to keep this separate, they are having tremendous success at this time. We're in the 1560s and 70s and 80s. They are going to have a tremendous time converting people in the New World to Catholicism, really left and right. The king at this time, again, is Philip II. We met him in our England video. He is a very interesting guy. He's kind of dour all the time. Like, he's very obsessed with death. He's very sullen all the time. He only dresses in black. He built this gorgeous palace. This is called the Escorial over here, the palace in Spain. I mean, look at this. It's absolutely incredible. This is where the king would live and work out of. Yet, with all this beautiful building, like, he spent most of his time in a crypt. He actually slept in a crypt because he wanted to be reminded that one day he would die. It's very bizarre, but Spain is kept ultra-Catholic. It's incredibly Catholic today. The Protestants will not get really any inroads whatsoever here, and he's going to love it that way. And so, as far as keeping Spain Catholic, he will be very successful and not only spread Catholicism to the New World, but also over to the Philippines. However, he also will have some early military successes. Now, I already talked about him losing in the Spanish Armada in 1588. However, prior to that, in 1571, he's going to have a huge victory in the Battle of Lepanto. In the Battle of Lepanto, the Spanish Navy is able to defeat the Ottoman Empire and gain greater control of the Mediterranean Sea. The Ottomans had really had dominant control of the Mediterranean Sea and its trade throughout much of this time, really from the area right around the mid part of the Crusades on today. And this victory is going to turn the tides and start to see the Europeans gain greater control. Okay, and you can see it was felt that this was like a Crusader type victory. You see this painting, I think, really shows it. You know, look, you've got the angels and the light side and Mary with a sword. Not that Mary normally had a sword, but whatever. And then over here, you know, it's the darkness and the scary Ottomans and stuff. So, you know, really big deal for him. But it's not all going to be roses. We do know that he gets defeated in 1588, but leading up to that, he starts to have issues with the Dutch. Now, the Dutch are a group of people that live in the Netherlands, but at this point, it is referred to as the Spanish Netherlands, okay? And the Spanish Netherlands was about as important as you could possibly think for Spain. They got much of their revenue from there, both in taxation as well as success in trade. There were lots of products that came from there. I mean, this place is hugely important. However, what starts to happen is that the Protestants, particularly Lutherans, have a tremendous amount of success in getting into the Netherlands. Philip sees this, he does not like it, and so what he starts to do in the 1560s is to pass a series of, not pass a series of laws, because he's the king, he makes the laws, to really start to, he will pass laws to limit the power of Catholics left and right, until finally in 1566, a number of nobles will revolt. The revolt will mainly be like destroying churches and stuff, but Philip will have none of it. He creates something, and I don't have it written down here, but make sure you write it down. He creates something called the Council of Troubles, and that is basically a committee with an army that will go into the Netherlands and put this revolt down. They are successful in that, and many aristocrats are killed. But what this ends up doing is pushing many of the Dutch, particularly the Dutch Protestants, toward greater unification. And that is where a man by the name of William of Orange is going to step in. William of Orange was really considered to kind of be the most important and successful noble within the Netherlands. Um, his goal is to unite the Netherlands in or as one nation. Here's a painting of him, and over here, here's actually a statue of him at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. Now, this is my alma mater, so of course I have to get this in here a little bit. Much of New Jersey was actually settled by Dutch settlers, and a lot of the towns, New Brunswick and others, were influenced by the Dutch, and so I say we because I went to Rutgers, have a lot of Dutch heritage, hence the statue on College Ave in an area called Voorhees Mall. Now, back to the thing. The thing is that he's not really able to get all of the Dutch on board because many of them are Catholic. And what's going to end up happening is you have kind of like a civilly type war, even though it's not an official nation. You're going to have two groups fighting, the Union of Arras and the Union of Utrecht. The Union of Arras is the southern parts and the southern provinces of the Netherlands. There were 17 provinces total. About six or seven of them were loyal to Spain. So you get the Spanish army some of the Spanish army, as well as the Southern Union of Arras versus the Union of Utrecht. This was held together by William and other major nobles. They had most major cities like Amsterdam and Utrecht were part of this. And, we've got a war, and that war will go on for a number of years. Fighting will go back and forth until finally the Spanish can just no longer sustain it. And what will happen in 1609 is that the northern provinces will be granted their independence. And so in 1609, officially you have the creation of the Dutch Republic, because they will be a republic. The southern part, the Union of Arras, will remain part of Spain, although in 1648 they will all join and modern-day Netherlands is formed. Now, the country that had some of the craziest things that were going on, especially violence-wise, was in France. Okay, complete and utter chaos, as you see by the picture there, gives you an idea of what is going on. Now, early on, as I said, the country was very, very Catholic under King Francis I, and you had lots of persecution against any type of Protestant, but the Protestants prevailed and they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And by the 1560s, the Huguenots, remember, are French Calvinists, have tremendous success in increasing numbers throughout all of France. Now, the thing is, though, it wasn't as much as some people often say. Only about 10% of the country was actually Huguenot. However, almost 50% of the nobility converted to Protestantism. Now, that is a big deal because, remember, the nobles are the ones that really do have all the power, okay? And you kind of have this tension going on here between the nobility and the king over... They want equal rights. They want to have the same abilities that other nobles have had. They saw the success that many nobles had over in the Holy Roman Empire. But then some craziness is going to happen. The king at this time, we're in the 1550s here, is King Henry II. Okay? And we're going to have a very Game of Thrones moment if you hear, homage, poor Robert Baratheon over there. When Henry II actually dies on a hunting trip, it seems like it was all accidental. And this is where the chaos will start. So King Henry's sons at the time were kind of young and kind of weak. So the person that's actually going to take control of the throne will be Queen Catherine de' Medici. Now, Catherine de' Medici saw some of the craziness, and she was actually going to try to be kind of that impartial, keep it relatively calm, kind of like Elizabeth did, but it's not really going to work out because each side, and we see this overall, when you have extremists get into play, a lot of times you can't get around the violence, even if the extremists are relatively small numbers, okay? And you have ultra-Catholics that hate that there are any Protestants in the country and they don't want to do anything with the Huguenots, and then you have Huguenots that won't rest until they overthrow all the Catholics. And Catherine really doesn't have a lot of control over her nobles. And not surprising, as a result, violence is going to break in the late, in 1562. And that is mainly because of the Guy family. The Guy family was one of the most powerful families in all of France. They controlled tons of land. They are ultra-Catholic. And in 1562, they massacre, and that is actually a painting on the right of the massacre. You literally see them killing people on roofs. A massacre of hundreds of Huguenots at the city of Vassy, or the Vassy massacre. Might be Vassy, I don't know. We'll go with either one. And what that results in is basically a 10-year war that's just going to break out between nobles. The French crown doesn't have a lot to do with it because Catherine doesn't have a good handle. Her army is very small, and the nobles are just fighting each other all over the place. The Huguenots don't necessarily have a single leader that they can rally behind, and that kind of hurts them. But the thing is that the Huguenots had better generals, so they tended to win a lot of battles. The problem is that they don't have enough of a population to actually win the whole war. And so the war kind of goes grinding on for 10 years until finally we have the potential for a compromise here. All right, we like that. So Catherine is going to agree to a marriage to try to settle everything down. Her daughter, Marguerite Valois, is going to be married to Henry Navarre. Henry Navarre was from the Bourbon family. He was actually descended from King Louis IX, who was actually a Catholic saint. And the whole idea here is that we're going to take Margaret, who's Catholic, Henry, who is Protestant. We're going to bring them together to try to calm everything down. The Guy family basically thinks this is a bunch of nonsense and don't want this marriage to happen because they feel that, again, this is capitulating to the enemy. And so they work with Catherine behind the scenes to try to make a move in 1572 or to end the Huguenots forever. And that is what is known as the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. On August 23rd, 1572, that is when Henry and Marguerite are scheduled to get married. You will have just a horrible, horrible massacre of Huguenots all over, starting with Paris and then all over the country. Technically, this massacre started the night before when the Guise start taking out major Protestant nobles. They get them assassinated. But overnight, what ends up happening is in Paris, where this wedding is occurring, all the gates are closed and the citizens are armed. During the wedding, basically a signal is given. This, again, very red. This is a red wedding-ish Game of Thrones reference here. Not that I tell you to watch Game of Thrones, because typically it's a little bit mature, rated R, so I can't tell you to watch it. Anyway, in the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, it starts during the wedding. This is a painting of it. Look, you got Catherine all in black, like looking down, like, haha, you're all dead. It's crazy. You've got Marguerite here, who's like crying because she's got, tissues and stuff like that, or like a handkerchief. Henry himself, Henry the Navarre, is not actually killed. He jumps out of a window to avoid assassination in the church. However, eventually they do capture him. He does quote unquote convert back to Catholicism for a little while until he can finally escape, and then he becomes a Protestant again. But 3,000 people are killed in Paris. People are killed all over France, and that does put an end to the wars. For now, for about 15 years, things remain quiet. And in the interim, we are going to get a new king, as well as a new war, the War of the Three Henrys. Let me tell you who these Henrys are. Now, this war will take place from 1587 to 1589, but here we go. The king at this point is King Henry III. He is the son of Catherine, okay? The other major players will be Henry, the Duke of Guise, who is part of something known as the Holy League. The Holy League was an organization created by Philip II of Spain, look, full circle, bringing Philip back in, to promote and extend Catholicism and to fight the Protestants. So he is an ultra-Catholic here, Henry, the Duke of Guise. And then you also have Henry Navarre, who is still floating around. They haven't been able to get him yet. All right, so what ends up happening? Okay, so basically it starts with Henry of Guise using his political power and his alliance with Philip to get Henry III to make him the minister of Paris. Shortly after making Henry the minister of Paris, Henry Guy the minister of Paris, Henry III realized this is not a good deal. This guy is basically trying to push me out of my throne. So in 1587, he has Henry of Guy assassinated. Okay, so Henry of Guy, this is a picture here. Boom, he's dead. All right. Now, Philip II is like, this is a bunch of crap, and he has his Holy League declare war, and they start fighting a war in France proper. Now, Henry III realizes that his forces aren't strong enough to actually defeat the Holy League, so he is going to form an alliance with Henry Navarre to push out the Holy League and the Spanish. They will be successful in that. However, in 1589, Henry III is assassinated by, of all things, a monk who was very disillusioned with him working with the Protestants. And the only guy left standing is King Henry IV. Henry Navarre becomes the king. He is married to Marguerite. That still happens. And what he's going to do is to calm things down. He's going to make a change for himself and then pass a piece of legislation. The change he makes for himself is he will convert to Catholicism. Yes, the church, the king must be Catholic, and that's fine, so he converts to Catholicism. But what he also does is he passes what is known as the Edict of Nantes. The Edict of Nantes, you see the little pamphlet up there on the left, basically says Catholicism is the official religion of France, but Huguenots have the right to worship, they have control of certain towns, and they gain all political rights like holding office. And everything seems to be going pretty well. The wars of religion calm down within France. We're going to have one kind of final one. However, Henry, even though I think there were like 40 assassination attempts on his life, but eventually in 1610, an assassin does get him. Here's a picture of this as his coach is going through Paris. A guy is able to jump up, get in there, and stab him and kill him. But you can see the craziness of what's going on. France is starting to settle down a little bit. We have a new dynasty. We're going to talk about the impact of that dynasty later. But everything is still on edge. Protestants are growing. The Catholics are fighting. The Protestants are fighting the Catholic. It's going back and forth until finally it's really going to take one war to end it all. But that's where we're going to stop today. So make sure you get done your assignment. I'll see you guys soon.